Greetings, YouTube. Today we're looking at the book Dark Life by Michael Ray Taylor. Martian nanobacteria, rock-eating cave bugs, and other extreme organisms of inner Earth and outer space. Now, the author is also the author of Cave Passages. He's a caver himself. What was interesting, over the course of the book, he went from just being the author on the topic that the book is covering, or topics, to becoming an active researcher in his own right. He actually went out and took college courses so he would understand what the researchers that he was interviewing were doing and saying and things like that. And he became fascinated with it and became a research assistant and actually began to gather samples that have been used in real research projects, which is quite fascinating. So he became part of the story in and of itself. This is about the life that exists in places that we, most ordinary people, are never going to encounter. The deep ocean smokers, where life exists at 400 degrees centigrade under pressures that would crush a car something the size of a tin can. Deep under the earth in waters heated by volcanoes and places where oxygen has never existed, anaerobic bacteria where they have never seen sunlight, and caves that humans have never encountered where you could have 3 different bacterial growths mere yards away from each other, and they can be completely different evolutionary lines that have never encountered each other or have diverged so late and so early that they cannot interact at all. Bacteria that literally produces acid that creates caves. Nanobacteria, which is so tiny, for the longest time, researchers said that you couldn't have life that fell below the 2 micron size range. Now, it's interesting, when they came up with that decision, that 2 microns is the smallest you can have life, below 2 microns. The size is too small for the chemical activity that we understand to be life, to operate, was also the limit of our ability to perceive life. That we basically said, all of our cool technology says that life exists down to 200 microns. We can't see beyond 200 microns, so essentially, life can't exist there. Now, that may be a little bit facetious on my part, but that's really what happened, in the fact that we couldn't get below that range, so everybody just kind of assumed that life couldn't exist below that range. But now we can. Now we have the technology, and we had better technology when this book was written, because this book was written near the end of the 20th century. We have better technology now that lets us go even smaller, so we know that there's things going on down there below the 2 micron level. One of the reasons the book also says Martian nanotechnology is that we have a sample of Mars here. It's a meteorite, or a number of meteorites. One particular meteorite, which has shown what looks like the fossil remains of biological function. And one of the interesting things is they gave an intern to NASA a bunch of samples to test. And she tested them and tested them and tested them. And there's this buzz around these samples, and she couldn't figure out what the heck the buzz was. Somebody wasn't telling her something. And she eventually gives the results to her boss and says, here, now you got to tell me what the heck is going on. Why is all these whispers and things, what is going on around these samples? And he hands her a picture and says, here, what is this? And she looks at it. Well, it's a sample almost exactly the same thing you had me researching. She goes, it sure looks that way, doesn't it? The samples you have been doing were samples found from here. The samples in that picture are from Mars. So she was helping to establish, without knowing it, that the things she was finding here that looked like fossilized nanobacterial evidence of life are found in this Martian sample. And of course, there's been controversy. One group of scientists saying, that that's not possibly a biological side, after effects, and one saying it most definitely is. That's how the scientific community works. And I found this fascinating. Now, one of the things I noticed over the course of the book that I found slightly problematic is that the author is a bit of a sexist. He describes women in a different way than he describes men. And he interjects his own opinion about their appearance and about the fact that they are women in this largely male sphere. And he's not rude, but he definitely shows a sexist edge. And he goes into a level of detail into that particular researcher's life that I just mentioned. And I apologize, I cannot remember her name. I'm horrible with names. To a degree that he's talking about her life from his point of view when he could just ask her, and he doesn't. It's like he's writing her biography when he doesn't have to write her biography. She's here, she's alive. He could have asked her to say in her own words everything he said, and it bothered me. It was like he was almost mansplaining her own biography, and it bugged me. And I don't think he's aware he did it. And maybe in 1998, no one would have noticed that. But we're not in 1998. The world is a different place. And people are far more aware that men do this kind of thing. And it sucks. But the book itself is a fascinating topic. If you have any interest in caves, if you have any interest in scientific research in Mars, in the bacterial kingdom itself, of how life very likely evolved on Earth in the past from deep in the ocean, where without light and without oxygen, it then blossomed into our realm where there is light and oxygen. This is fascinating stuff. Truly, truly fascinating. I'm thinking I'm going to hunt down Cave Passages by the author and seeing if I can get a copy of that, because that might also make a good read. And hopefully the sexism isn't quite as evident in that book as it is in here. But I really enjoyed Dark Life, and I'm going to see if I can find someone to pass this on to personally. If I can, I'll just donate it. But it's a great book, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. So I highly recommend Dark Passages by Michael Ray Taylor. Let me get his name in there for you. There you go, Michael Ray Taylor. And again, if you like science, you like biology, this is a book that I think that you are most definitely going to want to read.